Katherine, we saw those record buybacks. What are we learning about Buffett's capital allocation strategy here?
Well, I think this quarter really showed us that Buffett is not just sitting on the sidelines. And when this pandemic started, Buffett was really quiet. He really wasn't doing that much. And he was, if anything, selling airline stocks. And so he seemed really cautious. But now we learned that he spent a record $5.1 billion buying back his own stock. And we've learned in recent months, in July and August, that he was willing to do a natural gas energy deal, and he was also willing to buy up more Bank of America stock. And I think if you take all of those together, it shows that Buffett is willing to put some of his money to work. He's willing to do that in this climate. But he is sticking close to home. You know, he's buying his own stock, and he's buying Bank of America, a long-time investment. And even the natural gas deal, he owns a large energy empire, so it's a pretty familiar area for him.
So in what ways did the pandemic hit the Berkshire businesses?
So we saw it hit operating profit. That dropped 10% in the quarter, and it was across a range of businesses. I mean, the railroad, BNSF, saw lower volumes across all of its products. We saw a lot of their retailer companies get hit. And we also saw Precision Castparts, which is one of his biggest manufacturing businesses, get really hit because of the slowdown in air travel.
So what did we learn about his investment strategy, especially his style, because we know he tends to be careful and very conservative?
Yeah, well, I think he really stuck to that knitting, but he is more willing to put money to work in recent months than he was at the start of this pandemic. And so while, you know, it's hard to say that, you know, he's quite eager to start doing a lot of deals, I think it does show that maybe there's a little more clarity with the situation and how Berkshire's weathering it.
And Katherine, you know, at a time like this, would we expect to hear, or at least investors are hoping to hear, a little bit more from the man himself in terms of a potential, you know, investor call?
I think investors would obviously love to. I mean, he normally does not do earnings calls, and so it can, you know, the second quarter results can tend to be kind of quiet, but he's been relatively quiet over this whole pandemic situation, with only his annual meeting in May being the one time we've heard from him. And I think, you know, he's very careful about this, and his whole strategy is to really absorb a lot of information, read for hours a day, and I think that sort of shows in that, you know, he's sticking to that strategy instead of talking to a lot of folks.